cricket time.
Let's talk cricket, baby.
And when we mentioned cricket, well, the only cricket that's really kicking off at the moment happens to be the IPL. So let's start with that. And Peps, you had a chance to talk to a few of our friends over in India.
Yeah, I got invited back to talk with the Delhi Capitals. Usually, I don't get invited back to things. Very unusual here to be re-invited, and got to chat with the Delhi Capitals in their watch party, or essentially a pre-game talk show for the big Metropolitan matchup last week, the Metropolitan Derby between Mumbai Indians and Delhi Capitals at two of the biggest population centres there in India. Two very different histories, of course, with the Mumbai Indians being 5 times IPL champs and Delhi being on a donut. They've converted us, obviously. We're all Delhi Capitals fans now. There's even some talk of getting that fun jersey sent over from India. So fingers crossed that comes to fruition. And that night was a good win from the Caps. A low-scoring affair, which we've seen a lot since the tournament's been relocated to the Emirates. And it was the bowlers that stepped up once again for Avesh Khan. He's had an absolutely unbelievable season. He had 3 for 15 on the night. Arnavik Nortje, he bowls wheels. He was very good. And man of the match performance from Akshar Patel. They restricted Mumbai to just 129. And after an ordinary start, which saw our Steve Smith bat 3, not score many runs, and get dropped for the next game, unfortunately, that Rishabh Pant and Shreyas Iyer went out there and got them home. The Capitals also had a win over, and this was a clash between them and the Chennai Super Kings. And a very similar game, actually. They bowled first, they pegged them back to just 136, and they got the runs in the last over. So they will, they will meet each other on the start of the playoffs this weekend. First versus second. Winner goes straight through to the final, and then loser will have to play another game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just looking at it. I think there might be one match. Well, yeah, they've got one match. Sorry, yes. They've cemented their spots, of course, as Pep said.
Yeah.
So they will face off against each other. The list I'm looking at hasn't officially listed them as, hey, they're going to kick off playoffs, but each of them with a match remaining from today and tomorrow. When the finals kicks off on Monday, they will be facing off against each other.
Yeah, they'll be 1 and 2. There's no home ground advantage really, so it doesn't really matter where they finish. And then Royal Challengers Bangalore have got 3rd wrapped up. Speaking of them, Glenn Maxwell, he's in outstanding form. We spoke briefly about him last week, but since then he's added another 50 and a 40. So he's had a run where he's had 3 50s and a 40. Royal Challengers, they won 1 game and they actually lost 1 to Sunrisers Hyderabad, which means that they won't contend for the top 2 spots. They'll finish 3rd, which means they'll have to play an elimination game when the playoffs kick off in a few days. Just in terms of the World Cup, boys, great to see Maxi finding some form. He's, doing typical Maxwell stuff, switch hitting, playing shots which no one should be able to play, but he is able to somehow, which is good to see considering he had a bit of a lackluster IPL last year. Mm-hmm. But I'm not really sure where our runs come from, boys. We spoke about Smith getting dropped and has probably played about half of the games for the Delhi Capitals. Hasn't been bad. He's averaging about 30. He strikes just under 120. Hasn't been bad. But outside of that, with the T20 World Cup knocking at the door, Stoinis hasn't been getting a gig since the resumption of the competition with the Delhi Capitals. Finch is injured and not there. And Davey Warner hasn't played this last week, and I don't think he'll ever play again for Sunrisers Hyderabad. So apparently wasn't even at the game their most recent game. They're obviously in the bubble there. I don't know if he elected to or if the team suggested it. He just stayed in the hotel when the team went out to play.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that now because they have been really bad. They've only won 3 games so far. And I think, and as the note kind of mentions here, besides they had a reshuffle at the auction, the stuff that went down just before COVID hit the IPL in the middle of the year, the whole infighting with David Warner picking the side, not being able to pick it, the whole politics and all that stuff, I think it just broke the club. So, broke the team, either the chemistry. It's just not there. It sounds to me like guys are just punching in for get paychecks and then they'll finish up and then they'll sort it out and have to retool and figure it out for next season. But yeah, I think David Warner's not going to play again this season. Probably not going to play again for these guys. Maybe gets picked up, goes elsewhere. But yeah, I think there's been a lot of stuff that happened in the locker room, in the back rooms, that's then affected their play, and that's why they've been playing so badly. To answer your other question, Peps, before we jump in, where do our runs come from for Australia in the T20? At the moment, it sounds like Glenn Maxwell and Mitch Marsh. They're the only ones in form, so we'll have to hope for the best. Maybe they can put some tidy scores on us because everyone else seems to be struggling or hurt.
Yeah, very worried about this upcoming T20 World Cup. Let's put it that way. What else did we get? Oh, yes, Ruturaj Gaikwad. Remember that name, boys. He is coming second in the run scoring tally, just behind KL Rahul. He did briefly have the most runs throughout the week before being overtaken by KL Rahul, and that's off the back of 101, unbeaten 101 off just 60 balls. He's only 24 years of age. He will play a lot of international cricket for India. He already has 2 T20 internationals under the belt. And this game against Rajasthan was quite unusual in the fact that it was a high-scoring game. We saw 190 put up by both sides. And our mate, Lord Shardul Thakur, we saw what he can do with the bat in the recent series in England. He's actually pretty handy with the ball in white ball cricket. I believe he had 2 for not many in that game. And like we said, we won't run through all the games. I think the table is possibly more interesting. Monks, if you wouldn't mind having that one up and just running us through the points. Everyone's played 13 games, have they not?
Yep. Yeah. So as we've mentioned at the top, we've got Delhi Capitals on 20 points, Chennai Super Kings at 18, Royal Challengers Bangalore at 16. So this is where it gets interesting. So currently sitting in 4th, we've got Calcutta Knight Riders at 12, Mumbai Indians in 5th, also on 12, just behind on that run rate. And then we've got the Punjab Kings on 10, Rajasthan Royals on 10 as well for 6th and 7th, and Sunrisers Hyderabad's rounding out the 8 at 6.
Yeah, so I think given those net run rates, you can put a fork in Punjab and Rajasthan. So it just comes down to these upcoming games. I think Kolkata play Rajasthan tonight. A win assures them of a 4th spot and would mean 5-time champs Mumbai Indians would miss out. That's because that net run rate is unassailable, I think. I don't think that if both sides were to win, I don't think that Mumbai can win by enough to overtake them.
So luckily for them, they do play Hyderabad for in their match. So they are playing. If
the ball is in KKR's court. If they win this game, they're probably signed, sealed, and delivered. They'll be finishing in 4th spot. If they lose this game, it's big danger. With a star-studded Indians going up, stellar dwellers who don't have much to play for there. So we'll know by tomorrow morning when we wake up if Kolkata win this game, they'll go through. And if they lose, it makes it very interesting. Something I like the idea of it, but it just hasn't quite played out in the organised. To have the last 2 games played simultaneously, The idea being like you've got kind of like an EPL final day, where you don't really know what's going on with the other sides. You've just got to play for a win. It takes a few of the mind games out of it. Unfortunately, the way it's come to fruition is that it's going to be two games that aren't really going to have any implications for the finals. So Royal Challengers Bangalore and Delhi Capitals will play each other. So two great teams, maybe a preview of what's to come, but both are short of playing finals. And that other game being Mumbai and Sunrisers Hyderabad. So it's a good idea in its concept, but it's not going to actually have any implication with the other teams thinking what the other teams might be doing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
So, of course, we're all back in the Capitals through to the final at this point. So, hopefully see them finish on top of the table. They should. Or maybe they might drop down on run rate depending on how this game goes for the Super Kings, but it'll be very, very close. Of course, if they win their game against Bangalore, they'll go ahead. With that, I think that finishes up IPL. What's happening with the Ashes here, Peps?
Oh, just a whole bunch of clickbaity bullshit, I think, about the Ashes not going ahead. England are kicking up a stinker regarding the COVID restrictions, regarding family members that might be able to come, quarantine times, and the likes. Our government probably leading the world and being the biggest tight asses in the world when it comes to COVID stuff. Maybe with our Kiwi brothers across the ditch, I think we might be Exhibit 1A and Exhibit 1B for that award. But again, I wouldn't read into this too much. I had a few mates sort of text this week and say, they're worried that the Ashes won't go ahead. Given that there is international travel and the international relations involved, I suppose not quite comparable to the NRL Grand Final, where I had said put the wife and kids and a skull bet and whatever else old important in your life on the NRL Grand Final going ahead. I'm a touch less confident on putting the wife and kids on and a skull bet on this. Maybe just put the wife and kids on it. So I do think that this goes ahead. There will be a bit of back and forth between the English Cricket Board, the Australian Cricket Board, and the governments of both nations. But don't worry, I think what are we, less than 2 months away. I think we'll be watching some Ashes cricket, boys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we get to. I think, like you say, the main problem is probably more the travel between states. So they'll come across, they'll do their 2 weeks in lockdown. So I think there'll be an Ashes. It might just depend on what states they play in, because I think we talked about this last week or even off air, that maybe they fly into Brisbane, they play in Brisbane, then they play in Perth, then they play in Adelaide, maybe then they play in Tasmania, so they avoid Victoria and New South Wales, so they don't have to then do another 2 weeks quarantine in each one of those when they skip over the states. I think that's the problem, and that logistically becomes a problem for the Ashes if they're going to do 2 week quarantine in between each test match. So maybe it ends up being, hey, they've got potentially some other places they play the Ashes at. At least you'll hit 3 of the big 5 of the stadiums with current restrictions because you don't have to do quarantine for those states. But yeah, maybe there's an odd one where they play like in Tasmania as an example.
I reckon just skips the SCG and MCG, shit stadiums, no history, nothing's ever happened there, and just goes straight to the Theatre of Dreams. 2 test matches at Manuka Oval.
Was going to say that.
It's always possible. Yeah, have Boxing Day test here in Monaco. We'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, hell will freeze over, I believe, before that happens.
So my perspective, I think it'll go ahead. Maybe they might have to tweak where the matches are, but we'll see. Hopefully by then, and by all accounts, Sydney seems to be heading in the right direction. So New South Wales and us should be good by then. Melbourne's probably the concern now. But again, same thing for them. If they track the same, say, New South Wales is in that time frame, they should be all good as well. But fingers crossed, touch of wood. We'll see how we're going by then.
If that border between New South Wales and Victoria isn't open by Christmas, I might need to be booking myself a one-way ticket out of this joint because it's getting a bit ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. But we'll see what happens. I think this will just be a media beat up for the next few weeks, and I think we see the Ashes go ahead in the 5 venues that they're meant to be at.
Let me put it to you this way. It's a great talking point for people to start talking about the Ashes right when the 2 football codes finish in Australia. So everyone's now start thinking about cricket and the cricket season. So
for sure. And we've got Shield games going ahead. Obviously a strange cancellation last week regarding a few COVID cases, but we do have games going ahead. We'll report back next week on that. And the other big thing that's going on right now, we don't talk about it that much, but it definitely deserves a mention, is that the girls are playing at the moment. Test match between India and Australia ended in a draw. To highlight the achievement of Elise Perry, I believe she's over 5,000 runs and 300 wickets. That's across all formats. The first woman to ever do that. And they put her up. I saw something on Cricket Australia along with the blokes that had done that, and it's just who's who of all rounders in men's cricket history. So shout out to Elise. I believe they're playing a white ball game tonight, and they're playing a fair few white ball fixtures now, the girls. So good to see the growth of the sport. And Elise Perry, she'll definitely be an inspiration to a lot of young girls growing up that want to play cricket.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.